In recent years, we've had a boom of short dramas. This was not the case, I would say, even like 5 years ago. But I would say that this is something that came after COVID, or should I even say during COVID, where I think even just Chinese dramas in general had like a huge boom, and people were more willing to watch more dramas just because there were more dramas being put out. In the way that I feel like COVID affected every other like drama making market, be it Korean, Japanese, other than maybe say Thailand, right? But I will say that short dramas are a interesting niche, right? Because they come up in different ways, and I'll say that they are something that started first out of China and has moved into other like markets. Very often when I'm on TikTok, sometimes I'll come across these short dramas. They're always vertical dramas, and they're only like 3 minutes long, and it's always something about how our female lead is being abused. Right, she's been abused, and there's always that terrible second female lead that is just the villain and hater and is making her life hell. And they really try and get you watching very quickly with like a very catchy intro, right? I would say that for me, I am not one to watch one of those just because I don't value dramas like that, because it's so short, it takes me out of it. It's cheaply made as well, and things like that does affect how I consume dramas. And I'm kind of like stuck up when it comes to some drama qualities. I need my dramas to look a certain way for me to like watch it, right? So that's kind of where I think that I first noticed a lot of short dramas, right? They were vertical dramas, just short that you consume. They have like 100 and something parts to it. Even the drama wind up that I talked about a few episodes ago, the Jamin Geno drama, that drama wind up is also a short drama that has like God knows how many episodes, right? It's a very easily consumable like format, right? If you're stuck on your phone and all it takes is just scrolling to get the next part of the story, why not, right? I mean, you get to like episode 10 and suddenly you realize that it's locked and you have to pay for it. But generally, like, you get far, and if you're the kind of person that you enjoy content like that, you might be willing to pay because it's cents. Like, each episode is like a cent or so. Like, it's not a lot of money. So you're like, I mean, I could drop like 20 cents here and there, right, for an episode, right? It racks up, but like in that moment it might be worth it for your 3 minutes of like dopamine hit, right? The benefit of short drama in general is that it's easy to make, right? As opposed to like the big production, especially when it comes to like Chinese dramas, right? Where there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of production that goes into the bigger, more established, more like standard dramas, a lot of even censorship that they have to go through. Whereas like the shorter dramas are so short that they can kind of bypass a lot of things. They also keep the overhead costs low, I think, because they use people that are just not popular, right? So I have seen maybe one or two supporting, maybe third supporting actress from a really, really like popular drama, a standard drama, being the lead here, right? So it's always for people, it's reserved for people that kind of don't make that big break. They can't make that big break, and so they resort to this, and so they are able to, like, I don't want to say exploit the fact that they never made it big or they aren't big, and with that keep the overhead costs low. And also because I think that there's just so much space for drama making in China that it just boomed, especially the historical ones, right? Because there's the sets, there's the clothing, the design, all that is already there. That's why they can keep making more and more of like those Xianxia kinds of dramas, right? So I think that that is part of why this is such a popular format, right? Once in a while you get one that's like a gem and you just have to like watch it. And that's the case for the drama I'm talking about in this episode, which is titled Affinity. It is a drama that has, I think, maybe 40 in total episodes. It's 18 minutes long, so it's longer than the regular vertical 3-4 minutes long ones, but it's definitely not standard, right? I would say that technically, if you compare it to like Japanese dramas, especially Japanese BL dramas, right, it's up to par. Japanese BL dramas are about like 25 minutes long. This is 18 minutes long, but it has more episodes. So technically, it's more, even though it's less. It's less for its like genre, which is like Chinese drama, but it's definitely more than other, I'll say, countries, right? Because 40 episodes, like, you can never, Japan could never, right? So I'll say that that's like the setup for this, right? This drama is very interesting, I think, to me. It basically is, I want to say it reminds me kind of ABO Desire in the way like they've categorized human beings, right? In ABO Desire, you have people that are A, B, or O. ABO Desire is situated in the Omega verse, right? So that's what they're playing with, right? In this drama, it's a little different. And I will say that people are kind of divided into one of two things. They're either yin or ren, right? The people that are ren are considered like the bloodthirsty, the animalistic ones, right? The ones that you have to kind of curb, the ones that are closer to animals than humans. And I'll say that I got to this drama or watching this drama, I feel like they have very little human rights as well, right? I will say that one thing that is specifically particular about these two categories of people is that they kind of rely on one another in the sense that for a wren to become stable, because again, remember, they are considered animalistic, they are wild, they have to bond, make a pact, as they say in the drama, with a yin. That's kind of what grounds them. So it's a very like werewolf and their mates kind of thing, right? And I can see what they are going for, and it's almost Omega verse, but not really in a way. But that's basically the setup of this world, right? And so we have our male lead that kind of falls in love at first sight, with the female lead, and does everything in his power to like get with her, right? But obviously, like, she doesn't want this because this is just a stranger, and so it's kind of that dynamic that they have going on. Now, before I start and even talk about this drama at all, I just want to give like a spoiler. I know I mentioned it in like my podcast description, but this is not a spoiler free zone. I give spoilers, right? And I will especially be spoiling something in this drama. So, spoiler alert, if you've not watched at least up to episode 30 of this drama, you need to click off and watch that first and then come back and listen to this, because I am going to be spoiling things. I have to talk in detail about drama, so I'm not talking about anything, right? So, yeah, disclaimer, there is spoilers in my review and my discussion of this drama. So yeah, back to this drama. Like I said, we have this setup where one of them is kind of the chaser, he's the obsessed one, and you have the female lead that is kind of having to learn to exist and deal with this person that, you know, is seemingly just crazy, right? There are other aspects to this. For example, the female lead has a brother, right, that works for this agency, right? It's like this government agency, and basically their job is, it's in line with like protecting people from these kinds of people, these Ren kind of people, right? And so that's kind of his job. There's a lot of like sciencey, engineering, like genetic engineering stuff related to this, but really I think the core is just to recognize that people don't like Rens. They are, I would say, not a respected class of people, right? This is a caste system kind of like world, right? And our female lead just like plops into this, but I guess she, you know, falls in love as time goes on with the male lead, despite all, you know, is quirks, I can say, right? And so that's basically what the story is about. I'll say for me, the fact that it's 19 episode makes it a little watchable, because, you know, you can kind of follow the story up to a point, and, you know, there's kind of continuity. And I'll say this story is actually well written in terms of like the world building in this is very, very good, right? Like, this is the only kind of thing that I feel like you can only get because it's a short drama, because you have writers that would normally not be able to make it, that have good ideas, but just like people are not willing to invest in their story, having an opportunity to like make dramas, right? And so that's what you have here, right? Another thing I'll say about this drama is that I first like heard about it from TikTok to an extent, right? Just because people were like really raving about it on TikTok, and the reason why they were raving about it was because they had so many kissings. Like, the kissings in this are enormous, like they are uncountable. Like, it's to the point that I kind of even though I know censorship does not like come into play for short dramas, I'm surprised that they did not manage to lock this down to an extent, because the amount of like kissings and just like sexual undertone that this has is quite a lot, that I'm shocked that it it made it past censorship, but I guess that's the point. So that's another thing. Like the chemistry between the leads is very, very good. But honestly, that's not the reason why I'm covering this drama. The leads, they are not the reason why I'm covering this drama, because even though I watched this drama and I was watching it and it was interesting up to a point, it was not until they introduced her brother and his girl that I got interested, right? And that was like episode 13 or something. Like, was way in, but the minute I saw those two together, I was hooked. Like, they are the reason I'm actually making this review, because oh my god, like, talk about chemistry, right? Talk about just like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was so palpable between them. And their setup is so interesting that I kept watching for them. So just to give like a little like groundwork about the second couple, the female lead has a brother. He works for this agency that, their job is basically like, they are kind of like the FBI, if like the FBI was in charge of like managing people with extraordinary abilities, right? So that's basically his job, and he's kind of high up in this agency, right? In fact, he's technically one of the villains in this because of how much he just tortures like the male lead, right? And he tortures the male lead so bad, and it's to the point where you kind of like just dislike him, because he's very clearly biased against people that are of the male lead's kind, the Wrens, that it's kind of off-putting, right? Like, in a real world, he would just be considered a racist, like, just genuinely. The inability to see people that are Wren as human is like his biggest fault, right? And so that's basically his setup. Now, I had that in the back of my mind, knowing that, like, watching this, that was like the female lead's brother. That was just his character, right? So I wasn't thinking much about it, right? Until until I see him with Li Xiang. So Li Xiang is the Wren, like his girl that's a Wren that he's made a pact with, right? And their dynamic was just so interesting to me, because it was basically like a reluctant union between the two of them, right? And it was just interesting to me how that was set up, given the conflicts, given the fact that Yuan, the female lead's brother, was very anti-Ren. So even though the Wrens have like the like uncontrollable urges and all those things, the Yins to an extent also have it. And we see that when Yuan, talks to his assistant and is like, I need a Wren. And the way he talks about them is very like not cool, right? But regardless, like, he goes out into like this prison kind place where they have, and that's where he encounters Li Xiang. And I guess he is attracted to her, even though like obviously he won't admit it, but they have like a tension right from the start, right? And that is who he chooses to make a pact with, right? And I really like the scene where you see them like actually be together, right? Like, just the way you can tell he doesn't want this, but he's still like taken by her. It's just like so well portrayed, right? I really like that moment where like they're kissing and she mistakenly claws him, and he's like annoyed by it. Like, again, oh god, there's just something about it. Like, the setup is so well done, right? And he tells her like, never do that again, right? And she has to be careful, because I guess it's just like in her nature to like want to like scratch, right? And she has that like a rabid dog energy, and he's like kind of like her tamer in that sense, right? And so just that dynamic that they have going on is interesting to me, right? Because obviously like he has to grapple with the fact that he's falling in love with someone of a kind that he doesn't like, right? And that's very difficult for him. And Li Xiang like tries her best to like get him to see that he does love her, but he's just like blind to it for the most part, right? It takes a long time for Yuan to kind of admit in his feelings for Li Xiang. It's not to the point where she is possibly in danger, right? And he's not that puts her in danger, because he's basically her boss, right? And gives her the work she does, because she also works for the agency, right? But like, it's not until she's in danger that like he admits it, and that's after a long while. And even then, it's very like, you have to take me as I am, because he's not changing. And I like that he doesn't change because I also don't buy the idea that like people will become just like wide-eyed, like in love, and their personality changes. Like he is still the same asshole that he was in the previous episodes, even though like he has admitted to an extent that he likes her, right? And it's just so interesting seeing the two of them together, and their scenes together are just like, oh, it's so good because he does a lot of things for her, will buy a lot of stuff for her, but like cannot say that he loves her, right? Can't even admit that he likes her, right? Like it's supposed to just be like a physical relationship that they have going on, right? But literally, she's basically his like soulmate. Like in the way this world is like set up, that's his girl, like probably forever, right? And I saw them in that one scene. I was like, oh my god, this is it for me, right? And yeah, they really really they ate, honestly, they ate for how long they were on screen, which is not a lot. In fact, as of episode 27, this is a spoiler. Again, if you've not watched this, Li Xiang dies. I know. To an extent, I'm glad she died. Not like obviously from a I hate that point of view, but from a point of view of like I got to see Yuan be so devastated, and I love when you get a character that has basically been lying this whole time, and then you see the moment where he breaks, and that was the moment where Shiran breaks, and for once you actually see his true emotions. Because honestly, he's actually like very hard to read generally. That the only time I'm like kind of sure he's being honest is when he's talking to his little sister, because he genuinely cares about her and like her safety. So in that sense, I know in that moment he's being honest, but overall he's just like he's such a terrible person that I don't trust him about anything else other than that, right? So in that moment, right, and that's the only moment I think we see him cry, right? Because he's the guy that like called the agency on like his dad, I think it was, right? Like he is like very cold hearted, right? And so to see him break down, and then later take his own life just to like go and be with her, right? It's like, uh he had me in tears because like I love when they can show me that kind of level of angst in a character, and unspoken love between two people that I feel like we get with Shiyuan and Li Xiang, right? Like Shiyuan is head over heels for this girl and barely admits it, only admits it like once, right? And still, when she passes, it's like his world collapses. Everything that he's lived for to that point was basically he didn't have anything to live for anymore. Not even his sister, right? Like that's how devastated he was, right? That's how lost he was. That even though the male lead, who I mean, they're enemies, right? Tried to save him. Like he was not willing to be saved. I feel like he was done when she died. Like he was truly done when she died, and that was so beautiful. Like it's I loved it so much, guys. Like they are such a cute couple. I'm so sad that they are dead, obviously, but I kind of like that they are dead together. Like, does that make sense? But yeah, like I just liked how they interacted. I liked their scenes together. I liked that moment where he showed possessiveness and jealousy, right? Like he's the one that tells her to try and find the fragment, right, in Nongyu's house while they are there. And obviously our male lead is onto them and onto her, and so he corners her when she's like ransacking Nongyu's like bedroom and stuff and everything. And that's the moment where Shiyuan and Nongyu comes in and they're like, what are you doing? And obviously they're standing really close together. It's not a big deal, but like when they go back to his place, he just like loses his mind and grabs her and like kisses her, and it's like, like he for once was also just showing emotion. And I just like when someone can make you lose control, right? I like when they portray that, and they were able to like give you like a character in Shiyuan that was so composed, except when it came to Li Xiang, right? Even though he would not admit that, obviously, right? And I just, that was everything, right? So yeah, I really really like this drama. It's a shame that like the reason I'm watching this, they are no longer there. I am really sad about that, but I enjoyed it while it lasted, and genuinely this is a good show. The setup, the story, the world building, everything is actually well done. That you should check out this story regardless, because even though I did not talk about the couple, they are worth watching for sure. They are worth watching. They kiss so much that I am sure they got blisters on their lips. Definitely. Like there's no way they did not, because it's a lot of kisses. But yeah, that's how good this drama is. Yeah, do check it out. This was a really, really fun one for me. Up to the point where obviously the ones I liked were killed. But yeah, regardless, you should watch it. So yeah, that's really all I have to talk about in this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys again next week. Have a lovely one. Bye.